Hello and welcome along to another episode of Robin and Jane in the Stalls. And this week we're kind of trawling through Irish history. We've been to the Grand Opera House to see a show that everybody's talking about. It stars the fabulous Imelda May. It's called The Mother of All the Behans and tells the story of Kathleen Behan, who was of course the mother of Brendan Behan. She had many other children as well. And Jane, the first thing that strikes you about this show is Kathleen Behan, she was born in 1889. She lived until 1984. So this woman basically lived her way through Irish history.
Yes, she certainly did. And we got a real sense of that because in this life, which is beautifully stitched together with songs throughout, there is a sense of politics as well as a sense of feeling and of family life. And I think it was quite interesting to learn that she was a courier for the Irish, for the Republican side in the Easter Rising, and took messages to and from the GPO. She was a fiercely pro-worker socialist, and we heard her belt out the red flag absolutely magnificently, I thought. She was a very interesting character, and she passed this on to her children. They were a very independent lot, not just Brendan, but of course there are other writers, Dominic Behan and Brian Behan, whose book, in fact, forms the basis of this adaptation by Peter Sheridan. And apparently Brendan Behan once said, God forgive me, he said, but most of us turned into the kind of men that our mothers warned us against. He certainly did.
I know, and I think the thing about Kathleen as well, you can tell where the boys got their writing talents from, because this is a woman who obviously knew how to tell a story. She'd lived a life as well, and I mean, this woman knew people like Michael Collins. She even had a relationship with Michael Collins.
Oh, there was a definite frisky moment when she talked about Michael Collins and his long legs up on the desk, and we heard the song about Michael Collins written by a 12-year-old would-be rebel and revolutionary himself, her son Brendan, the infant prodigy, called The Laughing Boy, which is a lovely song, but it also tells the tale of the tragic death, the bloody death of the revolutionary, but it remembers him as a vivid character, and indeed somebody she clearly was very fond of.
Now, as you would expect with this show as well, it features lots of great music. Of course, it has to. We all know Imelda May has that fabulous voice, but the songs, these are timeless Irish classics we were hearing the whole way through the show. And I love the fact that it was just a keyboard player on stage with her the whole time.
Yes, that worked really well, didn't it? And it worked well in some of the great classics, as you say. I was going to say that this is on the whole, and I think it's on the whole unsentimental portrayal of her life and her times and her family. But if I tell you that it ends with Molly Malone, you might slightly disagree with me, you know. We also heard some unusual, slightly music hall songs. There was one called Miss Hooligan's Christmas Cake that I thought was quite interesting. And we had All Around My Hat, I Will Wear a Green Ribbon. We had a range of musical styles.
We had the old triangle as well. We had the old triangle that, of course, the Dubliners made famous.
We definitely had the old triangle, yes, heard in prison, and that was very affecting too. No, she's got a real rock folk kind of voice, and she manages to convey all sorts of different feelings throughout, which really impressed and made it a very entertaining time. It was sad, it was thought-provoking, but it was fun too.
It was, and I mean, there are lots of humorous moments. I mean, there's lots of stories about life in Dublin, what it was like in the street that they lived in as a family. One of the stories that I loved was a story about the woman and the son who lived in the same street as well, and because the mother used to rent out all the rooms in the house, he had to sleep in the same bed with her, and in fact, he slept in the same bed with her until she was 35.
Yes, until he was 35. I know, that was absolutely amazing. That was hilarious. There was another lovely story, sort of not quite in the same vein, but of Brendan being sent, aged about 6 or 7, to the pub to get a jug full of beer for his granny. I'm not sure if it was the same granny. I think it may have been, actually. And he watered it down and drank half of it on the way home. And she opined that maybe this was where his taste for the brew and for alcohol started, you know.
We must talk about Brendan as well, because of course he is one of the most famous Irish literary figures of all time. Even though he died sadly, but I think he was only 41 or something when he passed away. But the stuff about him in the play, I would have liked to have heard more of the stories. Now, we did get a sense of some of the theatre productions. We did hear what happened when they all went to London for the production and everything. But I would have liked to have heard more about him and maybe heard some of his poems on stage as well.
Yes, I think that would have been great, or maybe even a quote from some of the plays, The Hostage and The Quare Fellow. I agree with you. I think we could have had a little bit more of Brendan's genius, because that seemed to be quite rushed in a way, given the importance of him as an Irish literary figure. Yes, I kind of agree. I think I won't say shortchanged us there, but they could have expanded definitely quite easily and added in more. And he said, after all, of his mother, she taught me the power of words, and that's what we wanted. We wanted just a little bit more sense of his undoubted power of words.
Exactly. Now, the thing I did like about this play is the length of it as well. The first half was only like 45 minutes. The second half was only 40 minutes, which is perfect time for a show. And it zipped along really quickly. But it did leave us wanting more. So again, I would have actually liked to have seen more.
Yes, I would have liked to have seen more. I would have liked to have seen more, maybe of some of her other children and of Dominic and Brian, and maybe her relationship with them, because we got a sense of her as a mother, but I think we could have had more about the relationships when they were grown up. I mean, there was a very touching moment when she and her husband visit Brendan on his deathbed, as it turns out, and she talked about his brown curls on his forehead, and I thought that was a lovely detail. And then she says she fears that he may not make the evening, and sadly she's proved right. But we could have had more about their relationship as grown-ups, maybe.
What about Imelda May as an actress? Because you're used to seeing her singing, we're used to seeing her performing on stage. But as an actor, I mean, I thought she was fabulous, the way she transformed between the characters, and especially playing the older Kathleen.
Yes, she's very good at playing Kathleen in old age, isn't she? And we started out with Kathleen wondering about God and wondering about when she's going to die. And she is about in her 90s then, and saying she wouldn't mind if it was that evening. But on the other hand, she wouldn't want a long illness, you know. And she was talking about what came before God, and what was it about heaven and hell? What was she expecting? And there was something not quite querulous about this, but it very much was the sense of an old woman looking back and looking forward and wondering what's to become of her. And she did it brilliantly, because she doesn't do lots of makeup. It wasn't done with, you know, kind of accessories. It was done simply through acting, and she did it brilliantly.
And of course, for anybody going to see the show this week, it is a one-woman show. She has a lot to do on stage. So I'm going to say now, turn your mobile phones off. Because there was an incident last night that was actually quite serious. It did actually throw her off.
It did throw her off her lines. There was a moment when a phone rang, and she was in the middle of a very affecting passage. And it did throw her off, but she came back with saying, "It's time to take your pill." She dealt with it extremely well and effectively, and then returned to the moment. But the moment had slightly been lost for a minute or two. Yes, it had.
And then, of course, with all the Irish classics that you're singing throughout the show as well, of course, the audience are bound to join in at some point. But we had a lot of singers in the audience last night.
Yes, we did. We did have a lot of singers, and certainly in Molly Malone, where I think we were only supposed to do the chorus, I think quite a lot of people felt the need to do the verses as well.
Let's make up our final decisions then on the mother of all the Behans. It runs at Belfast Grand Opera House through until Saturday. I know there are a few seats left if you want to catch it. So I shall start by giving my verdict on this. And do you know what we're going to vote with today, Jane? We're going to vote with the little Molly Malone statues.
Excellent, excellent. Couldn't be better.
So as I am a big Imelda May fan, I thoroughly enjoyed the show last night, thoroughly enjoyed hearing about Kathleen's life as well. In fact, she's a woman that I would have liked to have went and had a drink with. I think that would have been a great night out. I was thinking, how many little Molly Malone statues am I going to give this? Will I give it 5? Will I give it 4? Because the show left me wanting more, I'm going to give it 4 little Molly Malone statues.
Yes, and I'm going to match that with 4 little Molly Malones. Very sweet.
So there we go. But it is really worth going to see, and great to see Imelda May in an acting role. So do catch it at the Grand Opera House. It runs until Saturday. As always, if you want to get in touch with us, join us over on our social media pages. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we'll see you back in the stalls sometime very soon.
Bye.